Welcome back to Part T with Becky and Kenzie. Before we mention our topic, we're actually going to read our messages from our tea bags today. So mine says, the plants have enough spirit to transform our limited vision. So we definitely believe in the power of plants and herbalism, so that really rings true for us today.
And my tea message from my tea today says, friendship is a sheltering tree. And I always find we always share these messages with each other before we start. But I feel like a lot of the messages we get on these topics kind of go with the topic. So I think we're going to start incorporating, if we can remember, to share that with you guys.
So
With
those
our
are
video.
our messages to carry with us throughout the rest of today, and I think those are perfect messages for this topic, especially, which is all about gaslighting. So, kind of piggybacks off of our empath versus narcissist conversation last time. So, we'll just start with the definition of what it even is gaslighting. So, that is when someone denies the reality of either your reality or denies your emotions that you're feeling. So they invalidate your emotions usually by saying things like, oh, you're fine, you're overreacting, you're being too sensitive, just get over it. You're not actually feeling that way. So when people say things like that, they're often obviously hurting you and trying to deny that you're actually feeling these uncomfortable emotions because they don't want to deal with the uncomfortable emotion. Um, so that in and of itself usually causes you to then question your reality and your initial emotional response. Because they're telling you these things, you're like, well, did I overreact? Am I being too sensitive? Should I have not gotten upset about this? Should I just get over it? Maybe it didn't happen how I imagined exactly. And you become really confused about your response initially because they're questioning your emotions. So don't gaslight yourself. Each time your reality is denied, so is your intuition. So when your intuition is lost, you start to lose your ability to trust yourself and your emotions. And that's what gaslighting can do to you. So I definitely have experienced this in past relationships. That's why I always say it's hard for me to know how to trust my intuition because my intuition was gaslighted for so long and my emotions were not taken as reality for so long. They've been denied and turned against me for so long. So that's when I say I can't trust my intuition or I don't know how to trust my intuition, that's usually what I'm speaking about is because I was gaslighted. My intuition is a little bit dwindled, but I am working on some tactics to get that back, which we're going to go over some tips and tricks of how you guys can help combat people who are gaslighting you and to not lose yourself in those moments. But before we get into any reminders or tips, Becky, I want to hear your take on gaslighting and what you've experienced.
Yeah, I forgot. I gotta
Valerie,
oil up.
we
Yeah, I
both
gotta oil up
are.
for this one. I gotta oil up for this one. Oh, oh, and I grabbed the OG Valor.
Nice.
Good stuff. Okay, so I have my notes here as well. They may be similar to Kenzie's, but it's never a bad thing to just repeat when it's good stuff. So I have here that gaslight, like, I guess what I pulled up for gaslighting is a tactic gaslighters use to gain more power by making the person question reality. And I've experienced that where I'm like, the same thing, like, did that really happen? Like, what just happened? Is that real? Did I imagine that? Which is a form of emotional abuse. Even I do have a quick story because I don't necessarily like to give people or gaslighters so much attention. I like to focus on like us as the recipients. How can we become stronger and how can we not be gaslighted?
Mhm.
So, and this was just like a random person. You guys know that there's trolls online. I'm
Mhm.
part of some groups online, and there was one, it was like for, I think it was like an empath group. And someone had asked a question, and I answered it. And then I got the peanut gallery, is like I like to call them, when you're having a conversation with someone and someone else kind of butts in, but they're not being constructive to the conversation. They want to be destructive, and they want to try to like troll you or mess with you. And I was sharing my experience when I had my near-death experience, and this person, looking back now with this topic, I'm like, they were totally trying to gaslight me, because I've seen this person in this group do these things that I'm like, I'm not going to engage with this person, because they're just like how we talked about in the last video, like the fake empaths. I'm like, this person is like a narcissist, because they're telling people how the person is feeling, or basically just not acknowledging. So like someone is expressing themselves and they're just basically like, no, that's not true, that's not real. And it's like, how are you going to tell somebody with their how they're feeling with what they've experienced? And so I was sharing this with the person, and they just chimed in, and I'm like, okay, whatever. Trolls online, I can ignore them. I ignored them. I continued the conversation with the person that asked the original question, and then they came in again, a little bit stronger, and I was like, oh no. I was like, we are not doing this, because not saying anything at that point is a form of allowing that to continue to happen. So there is that delicate balance of ignoring and speaking up. You know, try to ignore, and I don't want to tell you guys like what to ignore. If you feel like ignoring something, ignore it. If you feel like speaking up, like to counteract and set a boundary, speak up, because it's kind of hard to be like, you should ignore this, you should speak up for that, because we're not in those situations. So I basically was Kenzie and I are very blunt, very direct. So the Jersey girl in me kind of kicked in, and I was like, this is how I felt with this experience. I am not engaging with you. I am not going to go back and forth with you. I am done. I don't want to have any interaction with you. I don't want to talk to you. Then they tried to play the victim and whatever, blah, blah, blah. And
that's an important piece too.
Yeah.
When they try to play victim, and then all of a sudden the argument's turned on them.
I was just trying to, and I'm like, no, you weren't. But you know, in my head, I'm like, no, you're trying to troll me, and I don't even know you. And I shut that down. And that was the first time that I was like, wow, that was my own personal power, like rooted, standing in my personal power, using my voice, using my boundaries, saying, I am not engaging with you. We're done. And it might not always work, because like, if this is like a face-to-face, it might be a little bit
online, it can almost be not easier, but it can be a little bit more distant and be able to ignore those things, because you just delete that comment or don't follow
block them.
You block them. Like when you're being gaslighted in person and they start playing victim, it's really hard to like get out of that, because you're just like, whoa, now you're upset. I was the one expressing my feelings about being upset, and you denied that, and now you're upset that I'm upset. Like it's just like this circle.
This like really demented circle of confusion. So the cause of gaslighting can make someone distrust themselves. And I know I've had that, where I'm learning to start believing in myself. And I think from doing a lot of this like personal self-healing, self-care work, I'm becoming very strong. I think, having Violet, being a mom, I want to be the best example for her. So she's helping me become a better version of myself, standing in that like women's power they always talk about. Okay, so they can distrust themselves, or they can believe that they have a mental illness. So if you're being gaslighted, you're going to think that you're the crazy one. And I know I've had that, like where I feel like, am I crazy? Like, because then you start hearing voices in your head, and it's like, it's a scary thing. The long-term effects of gaslighting may include anxiety, depression, trauma, and low self-esteem, which I know
That was
I've
a big
had,
one for
yeah, I've
me, low
had
self-esteem.
experience with that.
Mhm.
So where can gaslighting kind of happen? This can happen in abusive relationships, but it can also take place. This is also very important because we always think of gaslighting as like romantic relationships, like
Right.
that's when it only happens. But
Mhm.
it can also happen in friendships. It can happen from relatives,
Right.
coworkers, or bosses.
Mm.
And the most important word that I switched in that was relatives. Because
Mm.
family, this is me getting all like on my soapbox, family will not do that to you.
Right, right.
Relatives.
Chosen family or blood family will not,
Yeah.
yeah, do
There
that.
is a difference between a family member and a
Mhm.
relative. Because I have a whole side of
Mhm.
relatives that I don't acknowledge, I don't talk to. I just recently cleansed my social media a little bit, which I have to do a little bit more. Um, they're relatives, and I don't want them in my life because of gaslighting, because of other things that go along with this. Which down the road we may do a video on, but I'm still kind of processing and healing from that. I talked with Kenzie. I'm not ready to open that big wound.
Yeah.
Maybe next year, that might be like, or an end of the year kind of a thing.
Mhm.
So some effects of gaslighting: you're not feeling like yourself. You
Mhm.
have more anxiety and less confidence. You're thinking you're too sensitive, right? We always use that. We've been called too sensitive. Um, you feel like everything you do is wrong, and I've had that. I think that was this had
100%.
stirred this when we do these heavy topics. When I do my notes, this stirs up stuff for me, and I'll text Kenzie and I'll be like, "This is stirring some shit up for me." Like I gotta, But it's to flip that in a positive. It's wow, I didn't realize there's maybe some residual junk
Mm.
that I need to kind of process, heal, try to let go of, not hoard it. um,
That piece is important, like the not having confidence in yourself and that low self-esteem and just like feeling like everything you do is wrong. That's exactly how I felt. And like nothing I could do or say would result in a better solution. Like it always turned into this like negative cycle of gaslighting and fighting and just like I was totally not myself at all. And I look back and I'm like, why did I allow allow myself to get to that point? But these people are so strong in the way that they do this, and whether they're purposely doing it or not, because I don't really know if this person in my situation particularly was conscious that they were doing it. I think they had some unhealed things that they were projecting onto me through gaslighting. That's not always the case. Some people are just manipulative and are purposely gaslighting you, but it took me a long time to, and I still feel like now that I'm like, having new friendships and talking to new people, I still feel like I'm doing things wrong. I still have that residual feeling of like, wait a minute, am I going to hurt this person? Because I was walking on eggshells so much in that past relationship that everything I do now I question. And I'm trying to get out of that. I am, working through that, but it's a strong effect. Like it doesn't just go away. Like especially if you've been gaslighted for such a chunk of time and it's by one person or more than one person, it can be definitely a hard thing to come out of. So I totally resonate with those effects.
I've always said that I feel that physical abuse is easier to heal from than
Mm,
emotional abuse.
right.
Emotional abuse for me, because I've experienced both,
Mm,
the emotional, because like physical, I would fight back,
mm,
so it's like you can you can fight back, but
yeah,
emotional being, it's a different, like you said, like
yeah,
manipulation,
yeah.
and yeah, so I don't know if I said this, but always thinking it's your fault when things go
Right.
wrong, which I think you had mentioned.
Yeah. I pretty much mentioned the
Constantly.
rest of your
It's okay. I'll just go through it.
You'll realize.
Yeah, constantly apologizing,
Yeah.
constantly feeling on edge, and like you have to walk on eggshells. That
Yep.
was a big thing for me. That's why I wrote that down.
Mhm.
And then the fight, flight, or freeze response happens often with extremely high stress levels.
Mhm.
That's something that I experienced while being gaslighted, not really knowing the term. I
Mhm.
didn't really know that there was a term for that, like
Right.
back when, but that, like that whole sentence, like that is the feelings and the emotions and all the stuff that I went through, like so much stress that affected me emotionally, physically, mentally, um, feeling disoriented and confused around them. And I will still now, if I feel disoriented or confused by someone, um, I know like, like this is not someone I want to,
Right.
um, you know, spend my time with or put energy into.
Mhm.
So I know you have some more. We were gonna go into tips, or you had. I know we broke it up, and I think
Yeah.
I'm
Mine are
almost
more like just reminders for yourself, and then I think yours are definitely more concrete, specific tips that we can work
okay.
on. So, like, if you are experiencing this and it's you can't escape it or you feel like you can't escape it, it's important to remember that your reality is valid no matter what you're experiencing and no matter what someone else tells you you're experiencing or not. So just because someone denies your reality doesn't mean it's not valid. So don't let others control or try to control your narrative and what you're feeling. Again, easier said than done, but just keeping that in your head that your reality is still true to you. Create those boundaries when you are recognizing that you're being gaslighted. Uh, Create the boundary that you're not going to continue the conversation, just like Becky did with that online person. She shut down the conversation and said, you know what, I'm not going to engage with somebody like this. This is how I felt, and you can't tell me otherwise. Um, you don't have to agree with other people's perception of you, and you don't have to try to change it either. Their perception of you might not change by you trying to tell them your experience, but that's their problem. Focus on your own truth, and if they can't change their perception based on your own truth, then that's not your fault. That's not your problems to deal with. That's something that they need to work on. And then the last thing here, I just have sort of like these well wishes, because I don't like to discount a whole label of person. I wrote here, I wish for those people who do partake in this behavior, I wish them grace and the awareness and the courage to explore why they are trying to deny other people's realities. So I'm hoping that, if you notice that you maybe have gaslighted people in the past, that you find peace with yourself and that you recognize those behaviors and can move forward from them. Because again, I don't like to think that humans are inevitably evil. I like to think that, everyone has their own experience and they're dealing with their own things and are just projecting that onto you. So those are my little reminders. And then Becky has some more specific tips of how to combat gaslighting.
You're nicer than me with this. I'm just like people. um, that's like but that again, that's me projecting my anger. I know coming into the spring season, I definitely feel anger stirring. I
Mhm.
definitely feel my liver telling me I need to do a cleanse,
Mhm.
which will also be another video at some point. But okay, so the first and most important step in healing from gaslighting is learning to believe in yourself. This is an ongoing practice. This is not something that,
Mhm.
Kenzie and I are like, oh, we're healed from gaslighting. Yeah, we
Yeah.
believe in ourselves. We believe in everything.
Yeah.
No, it's the ebbs and flows. I know myself. I have like the highs and the lows where I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, I can do this. Woohoo.
Mhm.
And then I'm just like, no, I can't do this,
Mhm.
or you hear like that negative self-talk.
Mhm.
Ways to start believing in yourself. practicing mindfulness. This was something when I first started going to therapy, that first session, and I had never heard of mindfulness like all those years ago. My
Right.
therapist said, she gave me homework and said she wanted me to come back with my definition of what mindfulness was. So, of
Mhm.
course, I'm like Googling, what is mindfulness?
Yeah.
Because I didn't know, had never really heard of it. And I was like, I don't know what that is. Um, you can, and Kenzie and I talk about this a lot, other journals, but you can keep a feelings journal and write down how you're feeling daily. So I
Mm.
know we've had our gratitude journals, we've had our garbage journals,
Yeah.
and it's good if you need to come back into yourself and what your feelings are, it's really a good idea to write them down in a journal, you know, just how
Mhm.
you're feeling. And it doesn't have to make sense. You don't have to be, um, you know, writing a book with sentences that are perfectly grammatically
Mhm.
correct and all that. You know, just stuff can not make sense, and that's okay.
Mhm.
Um, you can affirm your own feelings and opinions.
Mhm.
And I know Kenzie had mentioned this just right before, creating those strong boundaries. Learning, this was a big one for me, learning how to become more assertive. And
Yeah.
what that means is using your voice. I would be very quiet. I know, like, people who know me, they're like,
Mm.
she's not quiet. But when it comes to something like this, like, I would kind of just like go, like, kind of like into myself and just shrink and not speak up, not because I was afraid to speak
Mhm.
up. So becoming more assertive is using your voice. And with any of those tips, you can always find professional support. So a therapist or somebody who's a counselor who specializes in helping people heal from being gaslighted.
Yeah.
Because these, like we said, that these people are very manipulative, and I've experienced the intentional manipulators and then the
Mhm.
ones who maybe don't realize that they're doing it.
Right.
The intentional ones are very dangerous to your own health and your own mental well-being. So this is why this is very important. And like, trying not to like get angry or cry, but it's hitting a nerve in me that
Yeah.
this is really important to recognize if this is happening to you and know that you're not alone.
Mhm.
Know that there's nothing wrong with you
Yeah.
and that you can heal from this. It's not, nothing is,
Just
well, nothing is permanent except
death.
so.
Then is that really permanent? Because I believe your soul still lives on after that. So
Oh, I'm gonna be haunting
yeah.
people, and like I'm gonna be going like into like traveling, like going on the beach, going for hikes.
Right.
Um,
I just wanted to mention something too,
yeah,
because you had mentioned like if you don't recognize that this is happening to you, sometimes it could be hard to realize like that this term is what is actually going on with you. What I My therapist actually was helping me do, um, again, mine was during a romantic relationship that this was happening. So I was with this person for a long time. It wasn't someone I could just like discount. She had told me to keep a calendar of every day that I felt like I was being gaslighted without using the term gaslighted. Now, when I look back, I realize that it was a calendar about each day that I felt like I was gaslighted. But every day I would write down whether, an argument popped up where I felt like my feelings were denied or not, and what it was about, and if it was like a valid argument or not. And I kept a calendar. And by the end of the month, she said, okay, look back at that calendar and see, are there more days that you didn't feel good about yourself with this person, or more days that you did feel good with this person? And when you look back, you see how many days out of the month that you really were not in a good place. And that really opened my eyes, because when you're in it, you're just like, oh, well, it's not as bad as it seems, again, because you start questioning yourself, because they're questioning your reality, and you're just like, oh no, it's not really that bad. But then I'm going to therapy and I'm telling her how I feel, and she's like, it is that bad. And so because I couldn't believe that, she made me do this calendar. And then when I looked back, I was like, wow, okay, I really am not in a good place, with this person, and maybe we should start working on that. So if you're not recognizing that you're going through this, just keep like a note of how many times you feel like you're being gaslighted. And then it's like a profound like thing when you actually see it on paper, how many days of the month that you were not, in a good place. It was very powerful for me. So
That's a really good idea. I like that because then you can see.
yeah,
So that's like something you can physically see.
right.
Uh, I like that. All right. So, how to stop being gaslighted? Be hyper aware of all the details. And I know I'm someone that's detail oriented. Um, Even just like little, that's like the perfectionist. Like I see all the little like things, or
Mhm.
being a creative, we can kind of see a lot of details. But with the details, what is the gaslighter saying and what are they doing? So that's what you want to try to pay attention to. Now, this I wrote, become unshakable with believing in yourself. And that goes back to the, what is it? Be unfuckable with. That's something that I say, like, just be unshakable, be like a tree, don't let others knock you down.
Mhm.
um, know what is actually true, like what is the actual reality in the space. And I think there's probably a technique, I don't know if I'm making this up or if I've heard this somewhere, but even if you're in a room, look at what's on the wall, or what's finding the details. It's okay, what color is the wall, what
Mhm.
pictures are on the wall, to try to just kind of get you into
Yeah.
what
Using
is
your
actually
senses.
real. Yeah,
Yeah.
using your senses.
To get you back to like this grounding technique.
Mhm.
Yeah.
um, your intuition is your guidance. And I know that Kenzie mentioned, that's one thing that she's working on improving. And I know that have I've struggled with that, but more so I've always had a strong intuition.
Mhm.
But I've struggled when people say, "Oh, you're being paranoid," or "That's not
Mhm.
real," or "Your feelings, like you shouldn't be feeling that way," stuff like that. Those words can make you doubt yourself, because I have second guessed myself
Mhm.
when it comes to my intuition. So the way to strengthen that, or to help strengthen that,
Mhm.
is spending time alone with yourself and learning to trust yourself.
Mhm.
Because when you're alone, when you're in your own space, you don't have any outside sources trying to influence you. You just, like, me, myself, and I, how am I feeling today? Do those check-ins. I know Kenzie does a lot of those, like,
Mhm.
self check-ins.
Mhm.
I feel like maybe I do them or I don't, because I'm all over the place. So I'm like multitasking, where it's like, how am I feeling today, while I'm like trying to make breakfast or something. Um, you can do some guided meditation. If you need guided, do guided. If you want to just meditate with music, or even just nothing, and you want to just listen to the sounds around you,
Mhm.
any kind of meditation. And time, like I said, time in nature will help strengthen your intuition. Um, you can keep it very simple when dealing with the gaslighter. This is something that I've done in the past. I've experienced, with the exception of a romantic relationship, but those friendship,
Mhm.
relatives, coworkers, and bosses, I've experienced gaslighting in all those areas.
Mhm.
Um, so when I kind of shut down from that, um, I would kind of keep it simple, not knowing that that was like a tactic. That was just
Mhm.
me, like, shutting down and just needing to conserve my own energy,
Mhm.
because their motive is trying to make you live in a distorted truth by disagreeing with everything you say or
Mhm.
do. Don't allow the gaslighter to think you believe what they're saying. So, like, yesing them to death or agreeing with them
Right.
will give them more power.
Yeah.
This gives them the permission to continue gaslighting you.
Mhm. That's
This is
interesting because I thought, because in my fits of trying to like combat this person, I tried all different things. I tried getting louder. I tried being softer. I tried all these different things. But one of the things I started doing was like, let me just agree with them and see what
yeah,
happens then. Maybe they just want me to think what they're thinking and it'll be fine. And that did not work either. So, like, giving in to them is not a good idea. As
yeah,
even though I thought at the time, like, okay, well, nothing else worked. Let me just agree with this person, even if I didn't. And then that denied my own truth even more and made it worse. So,
and
that's a
I've
good
done
tip.
that too. I've done that too because you're just trying to get away. It's like that was
Right. I just
like
wanted it to be over.
you just want it to stop, and you're
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
that's where those strong assertive boundaries come in, like how I said
Mhm.
before, where it's, I'm not engaging with you.
Yeah.
We're done with this conversation. I'm
Mhm.
walking away.
Yeah.
And
That's
you
really
can
important.
walk away. You can leave if
Yeah.
they are just going on and on and on. Just you can we've said in previous videos, I've walked out of place just straight up left, like not even like peace. Like I was just like just walk out.
Yeah.
Um remembering that nothing the gaslighter is doing has anything to do with you. They
Mhm.
want to think that, or they want you to think that you have a mental illness when in reality,
Mhm.
they're the ones that are not mentally well. And I
Mhm.
will never try to like tell someone like how they feel, but in these kinds of situations, the reality of it, someone who is mentally well would not treat another person,
Right.
animal, another being this way.
Right.
Um, this is a big one, because it kind of contradicts how we say use your voice, but
Mhm.
in certain circumstances with gaslighting, you have to accept not winning an argument with a gaslighter because the reason why this is part of their game. So these certain like do this, don't do this. It's they're trying to manipulate you. So it's like, well, how do we manipulate them back to kind of and it sounds like because you don't want to become a manipulator, so it's like that fine line of how do I do this but not become the type of person that they are.
Yeah,
um
that's a big one because like I would always try to let them see try to get through the argument so they could see my side. And I'm like, no, you're not understanding my side. And I would try so hard to get them to see it. Whether right and wrong was in the context or not, just having them just understand where I was coming from was never a solution that we could get to because they just constantly wanted to have the last word and continue to gaslight. So that's a
yeah,
big one.
and this I have, let's see. Okay, you won't be able to convince them. I have a story about this when I'm done reading this. I don't want to forget this because I didn't put this in my notes. You won't be able to convince them you're right and they're wrong. You're going to waste extreme amounts of energy on this. My therapist told me this last thing that I wrote down in one of our sessions that this stuck with me till this day. You don't need to RSVP to every argument you're invited to. If
Mm,
someone is giving you an invitation to have an argument, you don't need to respond. You don't need to RSVP to that. That was something I was like, when she said that to me, I was like,
that's
because I
good.
was the same way. Like, no,
Mhm.
you need to hear how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
I'm feeling this way. You're not listening to me. Why is no one listening to me?
Mhm.
And I was like, oh. So this, I guess you can say argument. So the quick story on this was somebody that I care about very much. Something had happened with another person. And
Mm.
I'm still kind of like processing, and because I think when someone hurts someone I love, it's harder for me to let that go. And because it's like, we're fighting now. Like, you know, it's like,
Yeah,
I
like
need
you
to
could hurt me, but don't hurt somebody I
yeah, yeah. I'd rather you come at me.
yeah,
You know, don't come at people I love, because I will come for you.
yeah,
You know, and this person, it was just like messages back and forth. And when they were reading the responses to me, and I said to them, no, this is not the reality. What they did and what they're saying now, it's not matching.
yeah.
They're contradicting their action in what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And just like that, you're not going to get through to this person. You said your piece, and I'm so proud of you for using your voice and speaking up, because this person doesn't always speak up. And I was so proud of them for using their voice. And I'm so proud of you that you spoke up, like cut it, you know, like that you spoke up. They're just going on and on trying to confuse you, because even when they were reading me the messages, I started to get confused.
Yeah.
Or like I would chime in, like I kept cutting them off because I'm like, no, that's not what happened, you know, like I know what happened, you know. And so that was just that was a good, I guess it was kind of divine timing, because that happened like right before we decided to do this video. So
Wow.
it was a good reminder to be like, hey, wait a minute, you know,
Yeah.
this is like
Speak up, but be okay that you might not get through to them, and then cut it and move on.
yeah. And then I like psychology. I always like learning, how does the mind work? Why are people, there's me in my like Netflix like murder documentary, you know, docu-series, like
Yeah,
with
no, I'm
like
always interested in that too.
oh, I had to take a break from documentaries.
So did I.
Because the last
Oh
one
my God.
I watched was just like, I was hysterical. And my husband comes in from work and he's like, why are you doing this to yourself? I'm like, I don't know, because I have to know. Like, I'm learning. Like, what am I learning? Like the worst things. So psychological tips to fight back against a gaslighter. You can get rid of their motive. So like leaving the room, like just leaving the room, ghosting them. Focus the attention back onto them. Use their name when talking to them. This tip number 4 is something that I do a lot. I know, like on video, because the camera's up here, my notes are over here, and when I watch these back, I'm like, what am I looking at? Like, I don't even, like, you're always like, I can see you, and I'm like, Kenzie's like, perfect lighting, like she's looking in the camera, I'm like all over, and I'm like, where am I? But in person, when I'm not in front of a camera, I will look someone directly in their eye. I had another, I guess, experience with somebody. So I'm short. You guys can't see like on video, but I'm 4'11". So I'm short. Most people are taller than me, but I'm never afraid of someone based on their height. And I had this experience where there was somebody, a man, but like, you know, I say it like that because it's like men are usually taller than women, but this was like a really big guy. And here's like little old me, like, and there was an issue with something. And I had a friend who was watching this interaction, and he said to me, he was like, the person I was speaking with couldn't look me in the eye. Their eyes were going every which way, and I was focused. I was hyper focused, staring at them when I was speaking. And my friend said, you were like looking so directly in their eyes. And he was like on the side, like he wasn't even like in front of me, he was on the side. He's like, I felt like you were looking directly into his soul. And he's like, I was making him uncomfortable. And I was like, yeah, because I was trying to get to the bottom and like what the issue was. And this person couldn't even look me in the eye. So that's something that I always, like when I'm talking with someone, I will look them directly in the eye. And that's even if so like that first step of believing in yourself, if for me, if I had to choose like what would be the most important things on these lists for me to practice if I was just starting out or wanting to change this kind of behavior,
Mhm.
believing in myself and looking someone directly in their eyes. Because when you look at someone directly at them, it can cut like, I don't want to say you're intimidating them, but in this instance,
It
intimidate
makes them
them.
look at you.
It's
It
okay.
forces
Yeah.
them to, yeah, to recognize
There,
that you're speaking to them. So,
a lot of people have a hard time looking people in the eyes.
yeah,
So you're
especially now.
and it oh yeah, when I'm out, but see, even when I go for walks with Violet, I won't look at people because I'm like, don't
Mm,
talk to me. Like just
right.
like, it's like, please, I don't, we're in a pandemic. Like, don't even like open your mouth to have like these little like germs go, that has me like so on edge.
Mhm.
But but yeah, looking them directly in the eye and then keeping your distance. And this is something that I also love to practice, which is limited association. So this is more easily done with maybe like relatives, friendships. But if it's in a work setting, that might be a little bit harder. In a romantic relationship, that might be a little bit harder. So um, once, if you feel like you need to get out of any of these situations, then that's where the limited, depending on your situation, I know like if kids are involved, then there's that attachment. So if there's like, no, if it's just like you and another person, then that's easier to cut ties with. Um, and then I didn't mention this in the last, when we did the, our empath video. I wrote a blog post that will apply to that video, but it also applies to this video because I also feel that some gaslighters can also be narcissists. So the blog post, which is on violetsandsage.com, it's entitled The Empath versus the Narcissist, Real Truths. So I took a spin on this. I read so many articles when I was first like trying to deal with that type of
Mhm.
person. And they always focus too much on the narcissist. And I was like, why are they focusing on these people? Like, tell me, like, as the empath, like, I need your help. Like, tell me what to do. Not like you're just like, oh, they're like this, they're like that, but they're not. So I flipped it and I put the narcissistic traits on how empaths can harness that.
Mm.
Because they're so closely,
Mm.
I don't want to say they're similar because they're not similar, but characteristics.
I like what you said in the last video. They mirror each other.
Yes, they
Yeah.
mirror each other. Thank you. I don't remember what I
Yeah.
said. I love how well you can remember things because I'm like, did I say that? What's up? Oh yeah, like, or you'll say things and I'll start to remember things. I'm like, oh yeah, like, and I'll even say to Kenzie, like, don't let me forget to say this, or like I'll have to like put stuff. But that blog post, um, I would love for people to read that and just give me their feedback because
Yeah.
I worked really hard on that one. That was one that I tried to think, and all the experiences, again, that mirroring or that delicate balance of how can I teach other people like me to harness their power? How can I teach other people to reclaim their power? Because this is the fight that you're having with the gaslighter. They're trying to take your power
Yeah.
and you need to take it back.
Mhm.
And it's a very powerful, I'm not saying like you, like you,
No,
like the
no, I
people.
know.
It is a very empowering thing when you take that back, when
Mhm.
you use your voice, when you put up those boundaries and say, I'm
Mhm.
not engaging with you. I'm not doing this. We are done. I want nothing to do with you.
And I think it's important too to recognize that you shouldn't try to control the situation with someone who's gaslighting you either, because as much as you try, they're still going to believe what they believe about the situation. So not trying to control their perception of you or control, how the argument unfolds. That's a big thing that was hard for me, because in those moments where I was being gaslighted, I was trying to control the situation and get it back to being grounded, and it was not going to work with the tactics that I was trying to use. So just kind of letting go of that control of knowing that it's not you, and you don't have to, if they can't see your side, that's okay. Like, not feeling like you need to control the whole situation. That was a big thing for me, like, to try and remember, is not to try and change their perception, because that's going to just ultimately hurt yourself in the end,
I
because they're
love
not
what you
open
said.
to hearing, they're not in a place where they're open to hearing your side. That's why they're gaslighting you in the first place. So for you to continue to try and spend your energy on showing them your side, it's just not going to work out. So
I love what you said about that in the beginning about the perception, like, and the narrative. You know,
yeah.
people are gonna think or perceive you in a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
and don't. It's okay not to change their mind if they think of you a certain
Yeah.
way. Let them think that.
Right.
That goes back to what is it that I try to remind myself of this, that I am not for everyone, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone is not for me.
Right.
It's okay if people don't like me. And I know
Mm-hmm.
there's people out there that don't like me. And I know there's people that don't know me and don't like me.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like that reminder, and that can kind of like mess with me a little bit. But I think,
Mm-hmm.
like, for today,
Yeah.
I feel very strong and very rooted to
Yeah.
myself.
I think there was a meme
That
that
I'm
said,
just
like,
whatever.
yeah, there was a meme that said, like, don't expect everyone to like you. You don't even like everyone. Like, you don't even like people. Like, and it's like, yeah, that's true. Like, I can't
Get
expect
that on a
everyone.
shirt.
Yeah, right. It's like, you can't expect everyone to be your cup of tea, for lack of a better
Oh, God,
term. But yeah, so um
I'm cracking up. What
that should be our party with Becky and Kenzie t-shirt. Not everyone's your cup
like,
of tea.
yeah, we don't. Oh my God, did we just have write that down?
Yeah, I'm gonna write that down.
I know. Yeah, because I've been thinking about like like, can we get like t-shirts? I always love like a good saying
Yeah,
t-shirt.
I know.
Um, God, that's so funny. Because even or the ones that are like, I'm done peopling for the day, or just
Yeah.
like it's too peoply outside, like, and I will get annoyed, like if I'm trying to go for a walk and it's like,
Too many people. Yeah.
why are there so many people outside? Like, and that's like with that whole like, I need my space, and they're not even near me, and I'm getting
Right.
annoyed. Like, 'cause I'm just like, I'm like,
So funny.
how dare you go outside on a nice day and walk where I'm walking? That's like, I think that's the pandemic like
Yeah.
trauma. I think it has
Yeah.
me so traumatized. Just like, even people that I know that try to hug me now, I have to
Mm,
be like, please don't touch me. Like, please
mm,
don't hug me. I had to
yeah.
do that just recently, and I felt really bad. Like, when it's
Yeah.
people that I know, it's like, I don't want to hurt their feelings, but at the
Right.
same time, it's like, I'm not ready to hug people
Right, like,
again.
you have to
Like,
meet people where they're at. Like, if somebody's not ready to give a hug
yeah,
because of the situation, then respect that, even if you've known them for
yeah.
however long, or even if it's, your best friend. Like,
There,
everyone's
there's
handling
been
this situation differently, and we have to respect how everyone is dealing with it. Just because I might give my friend a hug doesn't mean that you would give me a hug. You know what I mean?
there were even like some visits, like when it was really like the heightens, but like I just
Hmm.
needed to see my mom, like, and it was
Yeah.
like we're on edge because like, you know, we're going to like see family, and there were times where it's like I wanted to hug my mom so bad, but it was more so I was trying to protect her, like,
Hmm.
because I was like, forbid I'm carrying, it's like this
Hmm.
whole
Yeah,
whole
that
thing, I
fear
think, for
mindset.
me,
Yeah.
like already being a germaphobe, and um it's not like so bad, but I don't know. I always call it the Italian germaphobe because like I grew up with my grandma always like cleaning or washing the walls or just, just like these things that we
Mhm.
grow up with. And then it's like, do I have to wash the walls now?
Yeah.
we always joke, we always joke that she invented the Swiffer, because she had like the stick with the rag that she
Yeah. Go
like
around.
for the old t-shirt, and she's just like
So,
um like she's dusting with that,
yeah,
so we're like, oh grandma, you could have invented that.
so
But
funny.
all right, did you have anything
I
else before
think
we close out?
I think that about wraps it up. I feel like we went over everything, even though we went through pretty quickly. I feel like we touched on everything, and um, send us questions if you have questions that something didn't make sense or you want to know more about. Like, read the blog posts that we put up. I recently put up one about peace over control, so that can also kind of help as just an affirmation for you as well when you're dealing with these things. But yeah, just thank you guys for always watching. Continue to like, share, follow us, comment, let us know your feedback on our blog posts, especially the empath versus narcissist one. I'm actually going to go back and read that one again, for myself
I
too.
did edit it a little bit.
Okay,
I
nice.
took out some things. Again, I wrote that when I was like hurting. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of couple of angry things that I took out because I was like, wow, I'm
Gotcha.
really projecting here.
But that's good that you can recognize that. Like,
Yeah.
I love, I forget, there was a meme or something that was going around, but it's like normalize growth. Like, it's okay to look back and recognize, okay, I was projecting some angry feelings here. Let me take that out, and I've learned from that. Like, growth is an okay thing. Just because you thought one way at a specific time doesn't mean you have to always think that way. You're allowed to evolve. So normalizing that reflection is really important to me as well. So
And I think well, with everyone that's watching, we love engaging with you and we love reading the comments and the
mhm.
messages. So keep those coming. We'd
Yeah.
like to talk more with you guys. Um, and yeah.
Have a lovely rest of your week, everyone. Thank you as always for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Bye.